Well, two batchmates from Harvard have made it to become world's top leaders, running companies that are multinationals. Steve Ballmer of Microsoft, Anand Mahindra of M&M. They join me to discuss what will be the future of technology and how India will use it to make some good business. Thanks very much for joining us. We're actually speaking at a time when both of you are back from your travels and things are not looking good on the way. That's Europe. Is the crisis going to make it very difficult for technology ahead?
Well, whatever happens in the economic markets isn't going to make life tough for technology. We continue to move, our industry and Microsoft, we continue to move forward, to innovate, to make new products.
Right.
Now, will there be as much money to buy them? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But the pace of innovation isn't going to get slowed down, in my opinion, by whatever may happen in the economy.
That's true, but the technology spends are often sort of driven by what happens in the economy. To what extent do you think that's going to be fluctuating in this time around?
It's an economic prediction. It's not an innovation prediction. So in a sense, you've got to sort of separate the pace of invention from the pace of revenue growth. We'll see what happens with the economy and revenue growth, but the pace of invention, I think, is going to be incredibly high.
You're optimistic this morning, or are you pessimistic about Europe?
I'm not an expert in the economy. I don't pretend to be. So it'll take care of itself, in my opinion.
So, Anand, what do you feel?
Well, I wanted to, before we let Steve go off that question, he does run not just a technology firm, but one of the largest firms in the world, one of the most respected, and you're all over the globe. You're arguably one of the most recognized names. So I still want to pursue her question, Steve. What is your view of the recession in general? You have to have some kind of view. I've just come back and, the weird letters, the U's, the W's. I heard of a new one last week, the square root. Somebody told me it's going to be a square root recovery and flat. Maybe they were referring to Europe. But do you have a view when you look around your global empire? What's going to happen?
Yeah. Again, and I'm not going to try to factor in Europe because I don't know what I don't know. But what I would have said was the innovation cycle will allow us to grow the consumer side of the business. It won't grow quite as quickly because unemployment levels are high in the developed world. And in Asia, where we've seen more growth, we still have some intellectual property challenges relative to our own business. Business spending, CapEx, 50% of it in the developed markets goes to IT. So if there's a debt problem or an economic problem, it sure hurts spending. But we had seen sort of some recovery off of, let me say, the bottom from about a year ago. And I don't expect that to skyrocket, but I continue to expect some reasonable progress in IT spending by business. Now, Europe, I just can't make a prediction on.
What about a reflection on the U.S.? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, there is a reaction of what happens in another developed market onto the United States. So in some ways, a sentiment impact that could happen?
I'm not worried so much about sentiment myself right now. What I'm really worried, I'm not worried. The thing I don't understand, I sort of feel like I should have studied more macroeconomics when Anand and I were in college together, is how is the global economy, how does debt, how does that all affect the global
forget all of that. I'm sure both of you are always, if not single-mindedly, certainly thinking about profit. And I know you keep sort of talking about how Microsoft is the most profitable tech company in the world. Profits do face a whole lot of storm when all this happens across the world.
I don't know how you feel. I don't view myself as responsible for profit. But what we have to do is do better than the guys we compete with. If the economy's going this way, we've got to go this way less than the other guy. If we're going this way, we got to go. It's about competition. It's about innovation and competition. And we're working hard on both of those. We can't control the absolute level of the economy, so I put that in a different, just a different part of my brain. I don't know how you feel.
It's also about competitive advantage.
Well, that's why my answer will naturally be very different from Steve's, and he'd expect it to be because, I've got my accounts meeting tomorrow, so I can't speak too much out of turn. But we've had, if you look at our last 3 quarters, we're heading for the most profitable year in our history, in our over 65-year history. And even our newer companies are all going to turn in probably very high profit years. I think that just is a manifestation of something everybody knows, that the growth in the world economy is going to be shifting to this part of the world, to India and to China. And the question, of course, is, you could ask me then, what about our businesses that are dependent on the West?
Right.
Particularly things like Satyam, which obviously is an exporter to the US. We're finding recovery in the US, and I have always been a bull as far as the US is concerned. I think the US beats itself up too much when the chips are down, and it comes up much faster than people expect it to. And all the signs from our IT companies, Steve, are showing healthy recovery in the US, but in Europe, I think, although there is a flatness, there is a recovery there. The question is, square root, or is it headed up?
And we've seen exactly the same thing, and yet, you know, you get new news, and I'm just shy about making an economic projection.
Right.
I'd say our experience in the developed countries matches what Anand describes, and our issue in the emerging countries, particularly in Asia, does get down to an issue of intellectual property protection for our success.
Certainly, and especially in the long term. But with clients like Anand, certainly the attention might be down here in the emerging markets whenever things go bad in the developed world. What is really the story that Microsoft is chasing about allowing Indian businesses to use technology and therefore improve businesses, save costs, go into innovation, something that you're very big on?
Well, our whole we have a consumer business and a sort of enterprise or commercial business. And our whole proposition to our commercial customers is we can help you get more done and give the people who work for you better access to information to make decisions. That's our proposition in India. That would be our proposition to our customers in the US. That's a proposition that we partner with Satyam, for example, in taking to market. And I see that proposition working very well here in